Well, good morning, everybody, to this PRAESENSA webinar. And the topic for today is unboxing PRAESENSA first access initial setup. My name is Peter Ophey, application engineer in Eindhoven for PRAESENSA. And also in this webinar is Jan-Pieter Smolders. He's also an application engineer here in Eindhoven. Topics for today. Mentioned that already. Initial setup for PRAESENSA. We'll talk about factory defaults. One moment. I have to switch off the music. Yeah. We'll talk about factory defaults, firmware upload, first access to the system controller, and we'll talk about security. And in the end, we will do a demo, and I'll show you everything that I have shown you in the presentation. Yeah. And the last thing for today is that we go through the questions that come in via the chat box. Okay, there we go. Well, the focus for this webinar, I mentioned that initial setup, firmware upload, security setup, and the moment that we are at the security setup and we've done that, that is the end of this webinar. Yeah, and in the next webinar, we will do a complete system configuration starting where we have left off today. Yeah, so the next webinar, we do the actual configuration. Yeah. The power and network design we already covered in another webinar. So we are not talking about power and network design today. That is the topic of another webinar. Yeah, opening the box. Well, for some of you perhaps have already used PRAESENSA. Some of you perhaps not. Well, when you order your PRAESENSA system, you get a large stack, depends on the size of the system also, of boxes, small boxes, large boxes. But the first thing that you have to do is, of course, read the manual. There is a manual, a very good manual for PRAESENSA, and almost all the information that you need, you can read in the installation manual, but there is also a configuration manual. Yeah, so always make sure that you have that. Yeah, chapter 4 in that manual, that is the general installation procedures. Yeah, so that's very important. How to mount it, something about batteries, something about power supply. Yeah, the cable requirements, network requirements are very, very important here in PRAESENSA. Yeah. If you look into the boxes, if you open your boxes and you go, let's start with the controller, you will find several cables there and also connectors and also those little wire protection sleeves or so, ferules they call them. You have the cables there and the connectors, but you have to cut it in at the right length and you have to make the cables yourself. Yeah. If you go for the amplifier, if you open the box of the amplifier, there is a difference between the 4 and the 8 channel amplifier in the number of connectors and cables. Yeah. But basically the cables you have to make yourself. You have cables of 1.5 meter, I think, and you have to cut them in the length that you need them. If you go to the MPS, the multifunction power supply, if you open that box, you have even more cables. There is that mains cable here. You have your thermal sensor for the battery temperature that you have to connect. And then you have those very thick wires, 35 square millimeter wires, that are actually the wires that you see here on the picture. Those are the battery cables. I think they are 1.2 meters long. So the batteries have to be very close to the MPS. And don't extend those cables. That's very important. And the last one, the call station has no cables or so or anything in it. But if you open the box of the cable extension, you will find there the flat cable, the little cable to the call station. Then you have also a steel bracket to connect mechanically to the call station with the screws there. And what you also find in an extension box are 3 button covers so that you can have a cover over the button. You have to open the cover first before you can push the button. Yeah, so that is what you all see when you open the box. The next step, that is the network connection. And here is my demo system that I have here. I'll show you in a moment. Yeah, but we have a controller. We have 3 amplifiers, an MPS, multifunction power supply, and the only thing that's missing here is the battery. Yeah, but you have your battery connections, the 35 square millimeter cables that are connected here to the MPS. So these are the power connections, power for the controller, and power for the 3 amplifiers. Just to be clear on the power connection, this is amplifier 1, amplifier 2, amplifier 3. Yeah, so this is number 1. That's important to remember that. So these are the power connection. Then we have here the network connections. And you see that we have the connection from the controller to the MPS. Then we have a connection from the MPS to the 3 amplifiers. You just can loop them through. You can even close the loop if you want. That's no problem. And then you have 2 RJ45 here on the MPS for the network. And those 2 have PoE, power over Ethernet. Yeah, and they can power the call stations over the Cat5 cable. And also the communication, the data is going over the Cat5 cable. So this is the setup that we have here. And then we can start our configuration or the first setup. Keep in mind, the devices have to be in factory defaults. Now you have 2 options here. First of all, you get a new device. Yeah, if you order new devices, you will get new equipment out of the box, and those devices have already, of course, factory defaults, but they also have factory firmware inside. And that means the devices cannot run in the system. They first have to get the latest version of the firmware itself. Yeah. Also, those devices have no security key inside. So also no released firmware. Another option is that you already have the device, and that is, for instance, that it's in your warehouse or that it is coming from another system. You have a leftover, and it has been connected to another system before. And at that moment, that device has a security key and a firmware version. Yeah. It's also possible that you don't know the Omnio security key and the firmware version, but it doesn't matter what it is. You always have to go back to factory defaults, and you have to do that yourself. Yeah. The moment that you go to factory defaults, and you have to do that for each separate device, you have to be sure that everything is in factory defaults. All the security keys are gone. The controller loses the configuration and the messages. Yeah. But you don't lose the firmware inside. So when you do factory defaults, it will not go back to factory firmware. The installed firmware will stay there. Now, how to go to factory defaults? That's actually quite simple. Every 19-inch device has on the right side of the device this little group here. That is 2 LEDs and 1 reset button. Yeah. And also the call station has the reset button. It's a bit deeper. Yeah, it's about 1.5 centimeters deep. Here it is very, let's say, a few millimeters inside. Yeah, something for this, you have to look very carefully where it is for the call station. You have to press that button for about 10 seconds. Yeah, and then you will start seeing those LEDs start blinking. The moment they start blinking, then it is at factory default. For the call station, you have to look at the front. Yeah, you press the button for about 10 seconds, and then on the front of the call station, you will see that the LED starts blinking. And then you know, okay, this is enough. it is at factory defaults. Configuration is gone for the controller, messages are gone in the controller, username and passwords, Omnio security key are gone. Yeah, so everything is then at factory defaults. When the whole system is at factory defaults, you start with your firmware upload tool, actually. Yeah. Keep in mind, the system at this moment is unsecure. There are no security keys inside, no passwords, there are no usernames, nothing is there. So the system is unsecure. Yeah. You install the firmware upload tool, and when you've done that, you can install the firmware version that you have there. Yeah, make sure that you can use the latest firmware version. Yeah, I would advise that. But install the firmware, PRAESENSA firmware as well. And then you start up your firmware upload tool. And then you get this screen. Yeah. And it's quite possible that this screen is empty. Especially if you have worked with PRAESENSA before, it's quite possible that this screen is empty. Yeah. What you have to do, if you go to File, that's here on top, and you go to Options, and what you have to do here is make sure that this box is not selected. It's not selected. So untick the box. Then you click OK. And then what will happen is that the screen will fill with the devices. It will fill with the devices that are in factory defaults. That is important. Yeah. If you forget a device to go to set it to factory defaults, it will not appear here. Yeah, but this is the screen that you will see, and you will see here there's, for instance, this, we have an 8-channel amplifier, and we have in this system 3 8-channel amplifiers. And you can go to all the different devices. Yeah, and you can see what is connected. What you can see here also is the firmware version that is installed. If you look at version, it says here 1.0 and then something. Yeah, and you can do your upgrade. Yeah, so what you can do, what you can see on this screen, for instance, before we go to the upgrade, is the device name for every individual device. And this name, we are looking here at the controller. Yeah, this is very important. We need this later. PRAESCL minus 0B4888. We need this, so write this down somewhere. What you also see is the IP address of the device. And what you probably recognize is that this is a linked local IP address. Yeah, it's important to know that you can recognize the IP address. Yeah, and here you see it, 169.254. That is a link local address. Yeah, and write there down this name. This name you have to write down. The IP address is not so important. Yeah. What you also see that the last part of the device name is the last part of the MAC address, 0B4888. Yeah. Now this device name, what you see there, we use later for the web browser, but also for the logging server. So you have to write it down somewhere. And now you can start the upgrade. And what you can do, you select a device and you click on upload. You will get a screen here with the firmware versions on your PC. You can select the version that you want, and then you just click start. And then the process is automatically, yeah, it will start, and it will take about 2 minutes for a device to upload the firmware. Yeah. You see here in this, here you see 3 amplifiers. You can also select them all 3 and then do the upload for 3 amplifiers or 10 amplifiers, whatever you want, at the same time. So you don't have to wait 1 minute per amplifier. You can do all 10 at the same time. When you've done all the different devices, so the call stations, controller, amplifier, MPS, then you can close the firmware upload tool. Then you're done with this part. Yeah. Now all the devices have the same firmware version, and that is important. You need the same firmware version for all devices. Yeah, then first access to the system controller. You wrote down the device name of the controller, and that is what we're going to use now. So what is important is that all devices are connected and that they are all powered. Yeah, connected via the network, but also make sure that they are powered. Keep in mind, default RSTP is on. Rapid spanning tree for the network is on. So be careful connecting it to an existing network. First start with a dedicated network. Yeah, try to keep it small. All devices and factory defaults. Yeah, we know that already. Yeah, and then you can connect your PC to, and it doesn't matter where you connect it, you can connect it to one of the network ports in the system. Any free port is okay. Yeah, you have two options now, and that depends a bit on your network setup. Use link local addresses. We've seen that already, 169.254. That is a linked local address. But if you have a DHCP server in the network, that's also possible. Yeah, then you can use the DHCP server there. Make sure that your network card of your PC is set to DHCP in both cases. And you have to do that, and you have to obtain an IP address automatically. Now, to be able to do this, you need admin rights on the PC. If you have a PC with no admin rights, you cannot do this. For those Bosch people who have a Bosch PC, that is a Bosch with SCCM software for software distribution, you cannot do that. Yeah, it doesn't work. Link local doesn't work on a Bosch PC. Yeah, so first time access, you can have link local addresses or a DHCP server. Yeah, and this is what we wrote down before. That's the device name of the controller. We try to connect to the controller now. Yeah, well, we've seen where we can get this. You can get this from the firmware upload tool, but of course there is also a label on the side of the controller where you can also see this name. But sometimes when the controller is already built into a 19-inch cabinet, it's difficult to get there. So then the firmware upload tool is much easier. Yeah. So this is the last part of the MAC address, and you see here the full device name. Yeah. Now what we want to do, we want to access the control interface for the controller. And that's why we have to add to this device name minus CTRL. That is the control interface. And then because we are working on linked local addresses, we have to type in here local. So this is the name that you have to enter in your URL in your web browser. Yeah, and then you will see this screen. You should see this screen. You see here on top, PRAESCL 0B, and then it is one controller 4876 minus CTRL dot local. Actually, it's over there. Yeah, so then you know you have access to your controller. So the next step, that is about security. So we have access to the controller, we have seen the opening page, and if you then click continue, you will get this screen. This is the first screen that you will get when you start a new configuration. And you will only see this screen once. Yeah, when the system is in factory defaults, the controller is in factory defaults, and you make your first contact, you will see this screen, but you see it only once. And here you can make your administrator username and password. So you create that here. And what we normally do is we keep it simple. We have a administrator called admin and then password admin123. Next step is that you click create. Yeah. And what you have to do now, especially when you have more difficult passwords, write it down somewhere. Make a text file, something like that, or write it down somewhere, but make sure that you don't lose it. Yeah. So write it down somewhere, put it in a small file or so, username and password admin123, because there will be more passwords. Yeah, because when you click now create, also the Omnio security key is generated. Yeah, and you can check that. If you go in the web page now, this is the next page that you get after that you create your first user. You go to security, system security over there, and here you see your username and passphrase. And you see the username, this is a default, this is a random username, except for PRAESENSA then, the name. Here you see so it's a very random passphrase. Yeah, and you can copy and paste that or paste that so to your text file. Yeah, so add it to the text file. And this is something that you don't want to write down on a piece of paper. Yeah, copy and paste it to a text file. You need this Omnio security key. First of all, it is for the encryption of PRAESENSA itself, but then you need it also for the firmware upload tool. Later, I'll show you that. And also for network docent, you need this security key. Still, the system is unsecure. Yeah, keep in mind. And then you can start your system composition. Yeah, you have your new username and password, you have your passphrase for the encryption, and now you can start your configuration. And if you go to the configuration page and to system composition, you will see this screen, which is almost empty. There is only the controller, which is always there. And you have to fill this page now. Yeah, and you click on add here, and you can add every time a device. I'll show you that in a moment. Yeah, in the end, when you've added everything, this is just a very small system. You click on submit. You go to save configuration, that's over there, and save the configuration and restart. The moment that you do the restart, yeah, all devices that you have configured here will receive the Omnio security key. Yeah, and from this moment on, the system is a secure system. You have encryption on the network, you have username and password. Yeah, so now the system is secure, and now you can start with the actual configuration. The actual configuration we're going to do in the next webinar. Yeah, what you can do, and that's what we most of the time do here in training, during the training, is that we change the key because it's a very long and complicated key. Yeah, if you want to change the key, make sure that all devices are connected, because if a device is not connected, yeah, all keys will be changed except for the device that is not connected. Yeah, you can go to this screen again, security, system security. You see the passphrase, that is what you see here in this window. You can generate, of course, a new one, but then you get again a random passphrase. But you can also enter a new passphrase. Yeah, and for instance, if we want to use this one, PRAESENSA -PSK, admin123, keep it simple. You type that here in this window, in these two lines, and you click change and then save and restart. Make sure that you also add this again to your text file. Yeah, and then when you do that, you will see that this difficult key, yeah, has changed to the, let's say, more simple one. Yeah, you can add later on, after that you have started your setup, you can add new devices. Yeah, make sure that those devices are at factory defaults. Yeah, it is not possible to connect devices that have a Omnio security key already. Yeah, you have to go to factory defaults first. Yeah, then you can add them to the configuration, save and restart, and then they will be part of the configuration, part of the system. Yeah, and the moment that you do the save and restart, they will also receive the new Omnio security key. Yeah, it is possible that you connect also a device that was connected before. Yeah, which is that is in the configuration. And then you just connect it. Yeah, it will be recognized by the system. You have to go to security system, security, and reconnect factory default devices. Yeah, and then it will be reconnected again. Yeah, it will receive the Omnio security key, and then everything is working again. So this part, that is a bit the complicated part in all. Yeah. Now we've changed the Omnio security key. And if you now would open the firmware upload tool, yeah, can do that with this. We have to change this because we set it. Now we have a secure system. The setting for the firmware upload tool is unsecure. So we have to now use a secure connection. And that means we have to tick this box. Yeah, but also we have to add our new key, PRAESENSA minus PSK. And then this was admin123, repeated admin123. Click OK. And then, oh, if you now click OK, the screen will fill with all the devices that have this key. Yeah. Okay. Let's have a look at the system here. I have a system. It is connected, and I'm working from a virtual box because I have a Bosch PC. So with a Bosch PC, I cannot do that. But I have a virtual box running on my PC, so now I can do it. And the first step is, of course, the firmware upload tool. And here is my firmware upload tool, and it is empty. It is connected, but it is empty. The devices oh wait, let me show you my system first. Then you know at least what we are connected to. This is my system. Yeah, you see the controller, 3 amplifiers MPS. You see the power connections on this side. The lifeline is connected here. Power to the system controller. Network connections on this side. Yeah, you see the loop through connections here from the amplifier to the second and the third. This is my PC connection, the yellow cable. And here we have 2 black cables that are connected to the call stations, which are here on top. Show it a little bit over there. Yeah, but all devices here are at factory defaults. Yeah. So this is my camera. This is my system. And now we are going to connect to the system. Now I see nothing here in this screen. So let's have a look at this file options. I have been working with PRAESENSA before, and you see I have a secure connection now. And I have to untick this box to work unsecure. Now wait a few seconds. And the devices should appear now any second. There they are. You see, I have my amplifiers, 3 amplifiers connected. I have my wall panel call station. I have a desktop call station, my controller, and the MPS. I see the firmware version inside, 1.42. That's the latest firmware version. If I go to my controller, I can see my device name, PRAESEL-0B487E. Yep. I see my IP address, and 169.254 is a link local address. It's also mentioned over there. And the last part of this device name is also the last part of the MAC address. Yeah. So what we have to do is write down this device name. IP address is not so important because every time we start up, the IP address will be different, but the name will always be the same. If I want to do an upgrade, I select my device. I go to the right-hand corner here. You see, I have a lot of different firmware versions, but here is the 1.42. And if I now would click start, this upgrade would start. I'm not going to do that because then we have to wait 2 minutes. Yeah, but what you will see then is that this will go to active and that you find here the green bar that is indicating the progress. And in the end, it will say that it is ready. Yeah, of completed. You can do that with, you have to do that with every device. And if you want to do that with the amplifiers, you can just Control A and you can do all devices at the same time. Yeah, that's especially handy when you have a lot of amplifiers in the system. Yeah, like this, you do all amplifiers at the same time. And you see here, hey, this is strange. I think I have to do one upgrade because this is in 1.40. Okay, so let's do one just to show you how it works. Here it is. It's active now, you see. And this will take about a minute, between a minute and 2 minutes. What you can do in this firmware upload tool is also check the firmware versions, but you can also select columns. There are more columns here. I didn't tick them all. Yeah, but you can select those columns, the ones that you want to see. Yeah. In the meantime, we see the upgrade going on. The system is still unsecure. Yeah, what you see here, there are no passwords, there are no passphrases for the encryption. It is still an unsecure system. Yeah, this is something we have to wait for. In the meantime, what I can do is show you my system again. I'll do it like this. What you see here in the system, that are the different cables. Yeah. You see those cables, the connectors, and you see the cables with, perhaps you can see that, the different sleeves that you see there, the verules. That is something that you have to create yourself. Also the lifeline, you have to use those verules. And it's of course very tempting to say, okay, I don't use the verules and I just put the wires under it. But that is, first of all, it's not very professional, but it's also not so very reliable. And when you use these verules, you have to also use the right tools for them. Yeah. So be careful when you make those cables. Yeah. Make sure that at least the quality of those cables is good. Okay. How far are we with the update? Almost there.
Peter, something maybe also on the display of the call station that you can see here while updating?
No, what you can see on the call station, I can show you that, is that it is still connecting or actually searching because the configuration is not started yet. Yeah, so it says searching all the time. The configuration is not started, so we have to do that. We will do that in a moment. So the firmware upload is almost done. There it is. You see now it changed from 1.40 to 1.42. Upload is finished and you see the complete green bar. And now we are done with the firmware upload tool. So we can close this or minimize it. Yeah. And we go to our configuration. And for the configuration, you just need your web browser. Yeah. And I made already a link here to the controller. This is the 487E minus ctrl.local. So this is my screen. And this is the initial setup screen. This is the screen that you will only see once. Yeah, only at the initial setup. So you see here the host name, device name is system controller, but you can change that later. And I create my new username and I just use it admin and the password admin123. Keep it simple for now. And now I click create. And now the system has a username and password. Yeah. And at this moment, also the security key is generated. So if I now go to security, system security, here is my passphrase. What you also saw on the slides, PRAESENSA, and then the number, and then you see the passphrase, which is very long. Yeah. So the security key is now generated and it is there. Now from here we go back to the configuration. We go to system composition. And you see here the controller. You can change this name, that's no problem. Device is a controller. And you have to select the right controller. Well, in this case, we only have one controller. But later on, when you have, for instance, a system with two controllers, you have to select the right one. Yeah, then there are two controllers. You can type in a text here, demo, and that's it. You can add other devices. We have 3 amplifiers. So let's say amp 1. You have to select now what kind of an amplifier it is. It is an 8-channel amplifier that we have. And we can add that. And we can see the amplifiers here. 3 amplifiers, 8-channel. Let's this one. We add another one. Amp 2. It's also an 8-channel amplifier. Add. And now we take the second one. This doesn't mean that this is the order where they are mounted in the 19-inch cabinet. Yeah? That is not the case. And we have amp number 3, which is also an 8-channel amplifier. We can add it. And now you see that we have to select this one. We also have an MPS. So just give it the name MPS. we have to select the device, MPS, and we have to select the host name, and that's this one. We have two call stations. Call station desktop. That's this one. And we have to select now the call station desktop, and that is the desktop. That's this one. We have another call station wall panel. We select here the call station, and here we select the wall panel call station. Yeah, you can what you can do is copy this and paste it everywhere. It's not so important for now. So now we have entered all the devices in the configuration. All devices are connected. That's also important. I have to submit now this page, and I have to save and restart the page. So I go to save configuration and restart. The restart will take about 10 seconds, perhaps 15 seconds, no more than that. It's quite fast. And after the restart, then all devices will be connected. And suddenly here it is very quiet because all the fans were running at full speed. And now it is very quiet. And if I now show you my camera, where is it? Yeah. Yeah. And I go to my call stations. You see that now the call stations searching is gone. And now you see the display, yeah, with the tiles on it and the green LED on top. And if I would go to the front of the system, let me show you that here. Not sure if you can see it from there. It's not so very clear, but it's not getting any better. I don't have the cables there. But you see all the indications are green. The indications there are green. The power indication over there are green. Yeah, everything is green. So the system is now ready for the configuration. That is something we're going to do in the next webinar. Yeah, but if I now go back to my system composition, of course I have to log in first. Admin 123. Let's save it. Configuration, composition, and what I will do now, I will show you my camera again. And what I can do now, and I can go to the identification of the different devices. This is my controller. If I tick this box, camera again, you will see that this is the identification of the different devices. They are now blinking. Yeah, and if I take the box out, the blinking stops. And this is a very handy way to identify which amplifier this is. Yeah, so if I do it like this, the first amplifier, you see it, it's not at the first location. It's at the second location. This is a very handy tool in the configuration page. From here, next time in the next webinar, we will start from here and do the configuration and create our first call and create background music. Yeah. So now the last thing I would like to show you, no, I have to show you one thing more, and that is the security key, the Omnio security key. You see here the key, and I want to change it. I want to make it simpler. So I make it PRAESENSA minus PSK. There it is. And admin 123. So PRAESENSA minus PSK, admin 123. Change. And you see now that the key has changed, and the key has changed for all devices now.
Peter, there was a question already about this. If you can do this change of the security key before you do the composition with all the devices.
Yeah, that's a good one. You can do that also in the beginning. The moment that you have you created your user account, and if you then change the key, then automatically the moment that you add all the other devices, they will have this key. Yeah, that's possible. So you can do it afterwards, but you can also do in advance when you only have the controller connected. Yeah, so now we have this key in the system. Yeah, let's do a save and restart. And what we have to do now, that's the last thing I will show you. That is the firmware upload tool again, because the page, it is set now unsecure. Yeah, so let's refresh this page. Yeah, the system is restarting now. The system is restarted, so it should be okay. So there will be nothing on this page, and that is just because the system is secure, but the firmware upload tool is using an unsecure connection. So I go to options, I select use secure connection, and I have the same PRAESENSA minus PSK key. So now I connect again. And now all the devices should be visible in a few seconds. Should be visible in a few seconds. Okay. Try again. Oh. Something is. Try it again. I hope I didn't make any typos when I created the key, because then it will not recognize. There they are. You see, everything is 1.42. The amplifiers as well. We did that before. And this is now connecting, or this is showing everything because the key now is also in the firmware upload tool. So thank you for attending this webinar, and hopefully I see you next time.